The Qing Dynasty, which ruled China from 1644 to 1912, presents a profound and complex paradox. It was the last of China's imperial dynasties, and it was a foreign one, founded by the semi-nomadic Manchu people from the northeast. Yet, the king presided over a period of unprecedented territorial expansion, a population boom, and an economic golden age that made China the largest and wealthiest state on earth. This was a dynasty that expanded China's borders to their greatest extent, but also one whose internal decline and inability to adapt to the modern world ultimately led to its humiliating collapse at the hands of Western powers. The story of the king is the final chapter of China's long imperial history, a tale of both immense power and profound weakness. So, how did a foreign people conquer a vast and ancient civilization and rule it for over 2.5 centuries? What were the key elements of their golden age? And what ultimately led to the demise of an empire that seemed so grand and powerful? The Manchu conquest, a new dynasty from the north. By the early 17th century, the native Chinese Ming dynasty was in a state of terminal decline. Weakened by internal corruption, a series of natural disasters, and a collapsing economy, the Ming faced widespread peasant rebellions. The most serious of these was led by Li Zicheng, who successfully captured the capital city of Beijing in 1644, prompting the last Ming emperor to commit suicide. To the north, a new power had been rising, the Manchu. These nomadic warriors were not Chinese, but they had adopted Chinese administrative practices and had become a formidable military force. When Li Zicheng's peasant army captured Beijing, the Ming general Wu Songhui, who was defending the Great Wall, faced a choice. Rather than ally with the rebels, he made the fateful decision to open the gates of the Great Wall to the Manchu army, asking for their help to crush the rebellion and restore the Ming. The Manchu agreed, but after they defeated Li Zicheng, they seized the capital for themselves, proclaiming the Qing Dynasty and beginning their long, slow process of conquering and consolidating their rule over all of China. The Manchu were remarkably effective conquerors. They combined their own military prowess with Chinese bureaucratic expertise. They adopted the Chinese Confucian-based civil service system, a meritocratic bureaucracy that helped them govern their new territory. However, the Manchu also imposed their own customs, most notably the queue haircut, a braided ponytail that Han Chinese men were forced to wear as a symbol of their submission to king rule. This policy was a source of great resentment and highlighted the foreign nature of the new dynasty. A golden age, the reigns of Kangxi, Yongzheng, and Qianlong. The Qing Dynasty's golden age occurred under 3 emperors who reigned in succession for over 130 years, the Kangxi, Yongzheng, and Qianlong emperors. Their reigns were a period of peace, stability, and unprecedented growth. The Kangxi emperor reigned 1661 to 1722 was a brilliant and tireless ruler. He put down the remaining Ming loyalists and rebellions, including the revolt of the 3 feudatories, which solidified Qing control. Kangxi was a true Renaissance man, with a deep interest in Chinese scholarship, art, and science. He oversaw the compilation of the Kangxi Dictionary, a comprehensive reference for the Chinese language. He was also a skilled military commander, leading campaigns that stabilized the northern and western frontiers. His reign created a strong foundation for the dynasty's peak. His son, the Yongzheng emperor, reigned 1723 to 1735, was a no-nonsense reformer and administrator. He cracked down on corruption, reformed the tax system, and tightened centralized control over the vast empire. While his reign was relatively short, his administrative reforms were crucial in consolidating the power of the Qing state and ensuring the continued prosperity of the dynasty. The dynasty reached its peak under the long reign of the Qianlong Emperor, reigned 1735 to 1796. Under his rule, the Qing Empire reached its greatest territorial extent, incorporating vast regions of Xinjiang, Tibet, and Mongolia. The population of China more than doubled during the Qing era, and its economy flourished. Qianlong was a major patron of the arts and oversaw the compilation of the complete library of the four treasuries, a massive collection of Chinese literature and historical texts. He famously declared in a letter to King George III of Great Britain that China had no need for foreign goods. This statement, made at the height of his power, would later become a powerful symbol of China's insularity and its coming downfall. The beginning of the end, internal strife and external pressure. Despite the glories of the Qianlong era, the seeds of the dynasty's decline were sown during his later years. The immense population boom, while a sign of prosperity, also led to land shortages, food scarcity, and a growing number of impoverished peasants. The efficient bureaucracy of the early Qing emperors gave way to rampant corruption and administrative decay. The king's internal problems were exposed by a series of major rebellions. The White Lotus Rebellion 1796–1804 was a popular uprising that highlighted the government's military and administrative weaknesses and drained the imperial treasury. This rebellion, though ultimately crushed, was a clear sign that the dynasty was losing its grip on power. At the same time, a new and dangerous threat was emerging from the sea: Western imperialism. European powers, led by Great Britain, were undergoing their own industrial revolution and were eager to open up China for trade. The British had a massive trade deficit with China, as their citizens had developed a powerful addiction to Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain. To correct this imbalance, the British East India Company began illegally importing vast quantities of opium from its colony in India into China. This created a widespread addiction problem and a massive outflow of silver from the Chinese economy, further destabilizing the dynasty. The century of humiliation, wars and revolutions, the Qing government's attempts to stop the illegal opium trade led to a direct confrontation with Great Britain. The First Opium War 1839–1842 was a humiliating defeat for China. The Qing army and navy, equipped with outdated technology, were no match for Britain's modern military. The war ended with the Treaty of Nanjing, a watershed moment that forced China to cede Hong Kong, open 5 treaty ports to foreign trade, and pay a large indemnity. This was the first of many unequal treaties that would be forced upon China over the next century, marking the beginning of China's century of humiliation. The defeats at the hands of foreign powers and the growing poverty of the peasantry led to the most devastating civil war in human history, the Taiping Rebellion 1850–1864. Led by a man who claimed to be the brother of Jesus Christ, the rebellion aimed to overthrow the king and establish a new kingdom. The conflict raged for over a decade, caused the deaths of more than 20 million people, and nearly toppled the dynasty. The Qing government, with help from foreign powers, eventually managed to crush the rebellion, but it was irrevocably weakened. Throughout the late 19th century, China was a plaything for foreign powers. Japan, Russia, France, and Germany all carved out their own spheres of influence. The Qing government tried to modernize, but its reforms were either too slow or too little to counter the combined weight of foreign aggression and internal unrest. The final major blow came with the Boxer Rebellion 1899–1901, an anti-foreign and anti-Christian uprising that was secretly supported by the Qing government. An international coalition of Western powers and Japan easily crushed the rebellion, occupying Beijing and forcing the king to pay another massive indemnity. This last great humiliation sealed the dynasty's fate. The final collapse, revolution, and the birth of a republic by the early 20th century, the Qing Dynasty was on its last legs. A growing number of Chinese intellectuals and revolutionaries believed that only a complete overhaul of the political system could save China. Sun Yat-sen, a key revolutionary figure, advocated for a republic. The Xinhai Revolution began with a series of armed uprisings in 1911. The revolts were successful, and one province after another declared its independence from the king. The imperial government was unable to suppress the uprisings, and in February 1912, the last emperor, the 6-year-old Puyi, was forced to abdicate. The Qing Dynasty, which had ruled for 268 years and expanded China's territory to its greatest extent, had fallen. Its end brought an end to over 2,000 years of imperial rule in China and led to the establishment of the Republic of China. A complicated legacy. The Qing Dynasty left a deeply complex and contradictory legacy. On one hand, it unified a vast and diverse territory, setting the stage for the modern Chinese state. It was a period of great cultural and intellectual achievement, and its emperors were among the most effective rulers in Chinese history. On the other hand, the king's inability to modernize and its insularity in the face of a changing world led to a series of national humiliations that continue to shape Chinese identity and politics today. The king's fall was a painful, messy end to a long and glorious history, but it was also the difficult birth of a new era for China and the world. The story of the king is a powerful reminder that even the most powerful of empires can crumble when they fail to adapt to the forces of change.